We can start by setting the scene on where the EU Digital Act actually fits in within the EU agenda. And what I can say is that EU has put forward this 5-year, very ambitious EU digital strategy plan. So some of us might have very ambitious personal 5-year plans, while EU has even more ambitious strategy for managing of all things digital. And the underlying goal or the reason behind it is for the EU to promote more open, fair, and diverse, democratic, and confident digital Europe. Yes, I'm reading that. Yes, that's the official statement. And I think the idea behind it is to make sure that EU is actually leading the way behind a data-driven economy. But the idea for how EU is promoting it is to make sure that the data as such, as we all have heard about data being the new oil, that the data is actually accessible quite democratically. So it is really hammering heavily on the accessibility of the data by different actors. And we'll definitely share a little bit more to it, but we want to think about it as data being accessible by both individuals as well as researchers, as well as businesses, as well as EU governments, which I find quite interesting. So as I mentioned, there is a little bit more context to how EU is proposing to action on the EU digital strategy plan. There are definitely quite a few pieces to the puzzle, legislatively speaking, that the EU is putting forward. I think all of us by now are quite familiar with some of the pre-existing pieces of the puzzle, like our beloved GDPR and e-privacy directive. Well, there are definitely quite a few new additions which are going to be taking on the digital sphere from different elements. So we are definitely seeing the EU stretching its muscles, as I alluded to earlier, in relation to non-personal data. So we can see that, for example, some of the newly proposed laws, like the Data Governance Act, as well as the Data Act that we will be discussing. Oh, look at it. We also have graphics to go along with it. So, just as I was saying, you guys just missed out on a very fancy video, but otherwise, this is what I was mentioning in terms of the broader EU digital strategy. And this is not a map of a monopoly, but that's actually a very, very helpful summary and the blueprint of what is the EU digital economy proposal, which was very kindly provided to me by Richard, so thank you so much. IP call out here. So in terms of the non-personal data initiatives, as I mentioned, part of the strategy is the Data Governance Act and also the EU Data Act, which is what we'll be talking about today. There is also a big focus on personal data and digital marketing. So that's where we have the e-privacy regulation, the infamous always coming but not quite there yet law. We also have the cyber resilience, so that's where we see the NIS directive coming up, hopefully sometime. And then there's also platform and competition law, which is already in place fairly. And then we also have the content and product liability piece, which is relating to a few items, including the Digital Services Act, which is one of the 5 laws which are kind of forming the main cluster of what I'll be talking about. And then you have on the sidelines, but definitely not in the corner, you have the Artificial Intelligence Act. So just to zone in on a little bit of a comparison between the EU and also the UK digital economy, you can see that if we're looking at our own island here, it's not nearly as busy, for better or worse, but we already have on the horizon the changes regarding the UK proposals for the data protection law reform, so that's something that we're, I bet, all of us very closely following. Yes, we are. And also we're looking at some updates regarding the Digital Markets Unit and also Online Safety Bill. So there are some elements that are being revisited and reviewed also by the UK legislator. But since the focus of our session will be more rooted in the EU, I propose that we take a look at the 5 key elements that are main characters in the show that is the EU strategy for data. So as I mentioned, the Digital Services Act, that law itself is actually proposed and confirmed by Parliament in terms of the text, as well as the Digital Market Act. And both of these are supposed to be put to final vote in the European Parliament in July 2022 before being adopted by the Council. And in terms of the timelines, the Digital Services Act will be directly applicable across the EU and will apply actually 15 months after being adopted, or from the 1st of July 2024, whichever comes later. The Digital Markets Act will become applicable after 6 months of entering into force. And then there's the Digital Governance Act, which has already been published by the official journal of the European Union, and it will apply from the 24th of September 2023. And then there is also AI Act, which has just been proposed on 24th of April 2021 and is still now being discussed by the European Parliament and the Council. So those are, as you can see, in various stages of finalization in terms of the letter of the law. And our main star of the show, the Data Act itself, it has been proposed in February, and it has just recently been also commented on by the European Union's EDPS and EDPB. So they have just recently shared their joint opinion on the law, and we expect that it will be negotiated also quite soon. And it will also become applicable 1 year after the date of entry into force. So there are some periods to adapt, but they're not quite as big as we're probably used to with some other laws like the GDPR.